Welcome back. The Portland man accused of stabbing and killing 2 men and injuring a third on a commuter train was in court on this day.
Jeremy Joseph Christian is facing multiple murder charges after a stabbing attack that police say involved hate speech against Muslims. Dania Backus has the latest.
Tuesday, 35-year-old Jeremy Christian set to be arraigned in court, charged with 2 counts of aggravated murder and 1 count of attempted murder.
1 for stab in the neck and the other in the stomach.
Police say Friday he stabbed 3 men on a Portland train, killing 23-year-old Talisha Namke Maishe and 53-year-old Army veteran Ricky Best after they stepped in to stop his anti-Muslim rant aimed at 2 female train riders, one wearing a hijab. Best, teenage son remembering his father.
We all miss him. He was a hero.
The third victim, 21-year-old Micah Fletcher, was released from the hospital overnight. In a statement saying, "I want the Muslim community to know that they have a home here in Portland and are loved. I want to honor the families who lost their brave fathers, sons, and brothers."
Where's Bull McMahon?
Police say they dealt with Christian multiple times.
I'm a nihilist!
At this free speech rally, he's seen wielding a bat and giving what looks like a Nazi salute. His extremist views also on display last month in this Facebook video.
I'm the dude that promoted shooting anyone that tries to disarm you.
And one day before the attack, seen here ranting on the same train.
You got a problem with what I'm saying? All you Christians and Muslims and Jews.
All right, thanks to Dania Backus for that report. Now, the mother of one of the men has written a letter to the president asking him to encourage all Americans to protect and watch out for each other.
Let's bring in Albert Cahn. He's the legal director for the New York chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations. Albert, do you see this as part of a pattern or more of an isolated incident?
Unfortunately, it's part of a clear pattern. In the last 2 years, we saw nearly a 6-fold increase in anti-Muslim hate crimes. And here in New York, we saw a nearly 6-fold increase in anti-Muslim incidents in just the past 12 months.
How do you explain it?
We saw the majority of our cases last year in just the 7.5 weeks following Donald Trump's election as president, and I don't think that is a coincidence. We see someone at the highest levels of American politics normalizing anti-Muslim bigotry.
Now, when you read on social media, you see reports that this murderer was a supporter of Bernie Sanders and Jill Stein. Does that make you rethink that?
What I think is that there's a certain populist narrative that can transcend any political party, but that can be easily captured by those who would wield bigotry and hatred to bolster their own standing. And I think what Donald Trump has done is really channeled a lot of resentment and a lot of white anger into what he considers a legitimate form of anti-Muslim outrage.
So in other words, you feel that there's an era out there where people feel now that they're more empowered to speak out or to say things that perhaps they've always felt, but now they can act on them and feel like, well, you know what, I'm not alone.
I think it's part of that, but I think it goes even further. I think there are people who are being told by the media narrative that Mr. Trump is constructing, by the statements he is making, that Muslims are an enemy. He is trying to, under President Bush, we saw him going to mosques and saying that we are not at war with a faith. He made it quite clear that the war on terrorism did not translate into a war on any specific ideology. But now, with President Trump, we see none of that nuance, none of that restraint.
You don't feel encouraged by what he said in Saudi Arabia during his Middle East trip, that Islam is a great religion, and he called out to other Muslim countries to help tackle extremism?
I think there are 2 Donald Trumps. I think there's the Donald Trump we see on Twitter and the Donald Trump we see on the podium. I think when Donald Trump reads from the teleprompter, it conveys all the sincerity that his statement means. And when I saw that speech, I did not hear sincerity. I heard a man, a beleaguered man, reading words that really didn't seem to resonate with him. When I hear conviction in his voice, when I see that conviction, it's the hyperbolic tweets. It's the incendiary tweets.
It did seem to take a while for the Trump White House to react and start responding to, for example, the Jewish bomb threats and the rise in anti-Semitic acts. Are we seeing the same thing play out now? And that is, I mean, there's certainly people at the White House who recognize this problem, but it's just taking them a while to get to the point where, say, they send the president or the vice president to the funeral for one of the 2 people who were killed.
It took the White House 3 days to tweet 23 words about this vicious attack. They have not called it a terrorist attack. They have not taken any of the responses you would expect if this had not been Muslim targets, but instead a Muslim perpetrator. There is a clear double standard here that applies to terrorism by Muslims versus terrorism against Muslims.
Is it encouraging that you saw two people intervene, step in, help these women to their own demise, and that you're seeing a lot of positivity, a lot of positive support for the Muslim community?
One of the most affirming parts of this job is seeing everyday acts of courage where people are stepping forward to protect those who are being targeted because of their faith. And my heart breaks for the heroes of Portland. And you know, to think that they were willing to give their lives as an act of love, and to show that that love was more powerful than the hatred that was driving this deranged killer.
There are a couple of rallies that are coming in Portland, Oregon in June. Alt-right rallies is how the mayor has described them. He says that they shouldn't happen, that the permit should be pulled because it's hate speech. The ACLU says you cannot ban hate speech no matter how much you may be disgusted by it. Where do you come down on this?
I'm a civil rights lawyer, and at the end of the day, the First Amendment is the best defense for marginalized communities. I detest the fact that there are those who are going to have these rallies in response, but they have the right to do so. And when we start banning people on the basis of ideology, we go down a very dangerous path that this country cannot and must not go down.
All right. Albert Cahn, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Still to come.